let's take a look at percents, fractions, decimals, all of that, putting it all together. More good foundations of algebra, things that we see a lot in pre-algebra and sometimes later on as well. So write each percent as a fraction in simplest form and as a decimal. So percent, I want you to think about that word just means per 100. Cent is 100, right? Or 1/100th is the value of a cent, of a penny. Takes 100 of them to make $1. So there's a definite connection there. So 20% is 20 out of 100. Now, that's not in simplest form yet, but it very quickly puts it into fraction form, which is super nice. So, if you have zeros at the end in a fraction, you can always just knock those off. You've technically divided by 10, but just mark out the zeros, make your life easier. So now we're down to 2/10, which is almost simplified. 2 doesn't break down into anything smaller, but 10 will break down into 2 times 5. And so I would do that and just say, oh, okay, well, 2 divided by 2, those cancel out. That leaves me just 1 on top, right? So I have 1/5. 20% is the same as 1/5 as a fraction. That's good to know. And then as a decimal. And so for the decimal, when it's percent, you're going to take the 20, the number, whatever the percent was, and you're going to divide by 100, which is what we had here. But all you're really going to have to do is move the decimal back 2 places. So the new decimal is right here. Okay. And so 20% as a decimal is 0.2. Now, if you want to write that as 0.2, you can do that. Or, 0.20, I guess, but you're not in a decimal, you're not going to see the zero at the end, unless you're talking about money, $50.20. Yes, you'll keep the zero on it, but 0.2 is the way that I would write it. 0.2 is fine as well, but it's an understood zero if you don't write it. Okay, so that's the first part. I'm gonna make this very colorful. All right, 8% is the same as 8 out of 100 because percent means out of 100, right? So let's see if we can lower this or reduce or simplify this fraction. So I know 8 is like 2 times 4, and 2 times 4, well, 4 could be broken down into 2 times 2. So let's see, 100, there's lots of ways we could divide 100. We could do 10 times 10. That works. And then I know 10 is just like 2 times 5 and 2 times 5 because there's 2 of them. Okay. All right. So this is how we're simplifying fractions. It's just breaking the number down into smaller things that you can multiply to get that number. And you keep doing that until it's down to just the smallest numbers you can get. In this case, they're called prime numbers. All right. So I have 2's that can cancel. I have another set of 2's that can cancel. And then I'm done with that. I have a 2 left on top. And then I have a 5 times another 5 on the bottom. 5 times 5 is 25. And so that is my percent, 8% as a fraction in simplest form, 2 out of 25. Now I want to change it to a decimal. So I know it right now it's 8, which has a decimal here. Think about $8 is 8.00, right? But I want to move the decimal back 2 places. 1, 2. Now there's nothing there. So I have to put in a 0 to kind of hold the spot. And I'll go back to pink again. That means that 8% as a decimal is 0.08. If you want to put 0.08, that's fine. You can do that. They're the same. But this is how I would write it. Okay, 0.08. Think about why it wouldn't be 0.8. If 20% is 0.2, then 0.8 would be 80%, right? That's going to be bigger. So if it's only 8%, that's a smaller amount. And so that's got to be a smaller decimal. 0.08, 800ths is way less than 2/10 here. Okay. 300%. All right, let's do orange for this. Okay, so 300%, that means out of 100. So this one simplifies really nicely. So we've got 2 zeros we can knock off of both of these, right? That's kind of cool. Remember, if you got zeros at the end of the fraction, you can on top and bottom, you can divide those out. So that leaves us with 3 divided by 1, and 3 divided by 1 is just 3. So 300% as a fraction in simplest form is 3. You know, we don't see the fraction in simplest form in that case. Because if something increases by 300%, it's tripled in size. It's gone up, you know, 300%. Okay. And then as a decimal. So let's take 300 and the decimal's here. We move it back 2 places. And so now we have the decimal right here. So that is simply 3. As a decimal, it is 3 as well. Okay, let's keep going. Last one, let's go with this color. So 1.25 out of 100. Remember, that's as a percent. Okay, and so when you are simplifying here, you need numbers that are going to be not decimals with a fraction. Like that's just kind of crazy. So I want to move this decimal over 2 places. I want to make this 125 so that I don't have a decimal in the problem at all. And if I move the decimal over 2 places, I have to do it down here too. So 1, 2. So that means I have it over 100 and 2 more zeros. So really 10,000. Oh my goodness. This is really, really big, right? Okay. So let's think about this. 125. How can I multiply and get 125? Well, let's grab a calculator just to speed things along just a bit. So 125, I know it'll divide by 5, right? Because it ends with a 5. We know that rule. And so that means 5 times 25. Well, I know that 25 can be broken down into 5 times 5. So let's double check that. And I want you to see it. 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. Yeah, so I could rewrite 125 as 5 times 5 times 5. All right, 10,000. Think about all those zeros at the end. I know that I can divide it by 10. Can I divide it by 100? Let's see what happens. Look at that. How about that? 10,000 divided by 100 is 100. And so 100 times 100. Well, we did a 100 already. We already broke 100 down into this. 2 times 5 times 2 times 5. Now that was one of the 100s. So let's do it again. 2 times 5 times 2 times 5. That's the other 100. Okay. So now I can cross out things that I see in common. So there are 5s on top and bottom. Oh, there's another set of 5s and a third set. Okay. So we're left with just 1s on top because everything else canceled out. And on the bottom, we have a 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. Okay, so this is going to be 1 over. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, and then 2 times 5 is 10. That's easier for me to do. 8 times 10 is 80. So this as a fraction is 1 over 80. All right, let me move my calculator back out of the way so I have some space here. All right, so 1.25% as a decimal. So remember, you take your number and to make it as a decimal, you move the decimal back 2 places. And 1 place is in front of the 1, but then I need 1 more spot. And so I'll do this final one in a different color. So I have 0.0125 is my decimal form, or I could put 0.0125 if I really wanted to do that. Okay. I hope that helps you. Remember, don't let anyone think less of you because you're young. I'll see you next time.